In the shadow of Kingston's toughest streets, a barefoot boy dared to dream of glory. But when the world opened its doors, it wasn't just fame and fortune waiting. It was temptation, betrayal, and a fall from grace that would test everything he believed in. Orlando Smith was 9 years old and already familiar with hardship. He lived with his mother and 3 older brothers in a modest tin-roof house in Maverly, Kingston. The house lacked a proper bathroom, a refrigerator, and was often without running water. When the skies opened and rain poured down, the family hurried to place battered plastic buckets across the cracked concrete floor to catch the leaks. At night, the stillness was broken by the sound of rats skittering boldly across the room as if they owned the place. But outside, out there on the sun-baked common, life felt different. Orlando and his brothers spent every free moment playing football in the dusty common with friends from the neighborhood. It wasn't organized football. There were no whistles, no coaches shouting instructions, and no boundary lines marked on the pitch. The rules were simple. Who had the skill, the flair, the sharpest touch? Who could make the ball dance? Orlando watched the older boys like a student, soaking in every flick, every feint, every clever turn of the foot. Then he'd try the moves himself, barefoot on the rough dirt, his soles toughened by countless hours walking scorching asphalt. He had never worn a pair of football boots in his life. Ironically, it was an old man, impressed by the boy's natural talent, who declared, "This boy was born to play football, like boots themselves." The name stuck, and soon everyone in Maverly was calling him Boots. Orlando didn't mind the nickname. Out here, nicknames don't just label you, they tell the story of who you are. And when the ball was at his feet, even without boots, he felt free. For those moments, he wasn't the boy from the leaking shack. He wasn't the boy who battled hunger. He was someone else entirely, a magician, a king, the best player on the common. And somewhere deep inside him, a dream was beginning to grow. His mother worked tirelessly, scrubbing laundry by hand, cleaning the tile floors and polishing the glass windows of the uptown houses she'd never afford to live in. Sometimes she would come home with a loaf of bread and call it a blessing. Other times, she returned with tired eyes, sore feet, and empty hands. On those nights, dinner was a slice of hard dough bread and a cup of sugar and water, warm, thin, insipid, and hollow in their bellies. Dwayne, just 14, was more than a brother to Orlando, a quiet protector who bore their burdens without complaint, a shield, a motivator, a dreamer who refused to let their harsh reality define their future. Meanwhile, Ricky, 16 and already knee-deep in the streets, was dragging their other brother, 12-year-old Brian, into the grip of gang life. But Dwayne fought to pull Orlando the other way, away from the crime, the violence, the slow decay, and towards a sliver of something better. There was no hostility between the brothers, but Ricky and Brian, drawn to the streets and to each other, drifted down one path, while Dwayne held Orlando close, shielding him like a last hope. From that point on, it was the two of them against the world. Some nights, when the other brothers fell asleep, exhausted on the thin mattress they all shared, Orlando would quietly slip away to stand by the glass window with Dwayne. Beneath the soft glow of the street lamp, he gazed out at the night sky, seeking escape from their harsh reality. In those quiet moments, Dwayne whispered truths meant to shape his little brother into someone stronger. "You can't give up Boots," he'd say. "Every morning you open your eyes. That's another chance to change things. Just keep going. Never give in to peer pressure or the lure of gang life. It will steal away your chance at a brighter future." Dwayne was Orlando's moral compass, steady and sure, guiding him through the darkest corners of ghetto life. It was Dwayne who came up with the idea on a day when hunger gnawed at them, harder than usual. A sharp, twisting emptiness that no slice of bread or sugar and water could ease. "We'll go up to Hugh and then," he whispered. his eyes flicking toward their mother, fast asleep on the threadbare sofa, unaware of the hunger churning in her son's stomachs. "The big houses," Dwayne said, steady and low. "Maybe someone in there will help us." We asked politely. No stealing. Orlando's heart tightened. Hugh Endin was another world. Clean streets, iron gates, wide driveways, and walls so high they hid the lives of the rich behind them. Poor boys like him didn't belong there. But Dwayne's voice was steady, full of quiet resolve. "We'll go tomorrow," Dwayne said. "Early, before the sun burns the street. Maybe God will touch someone's heart." Orlando swallowed hard and nodded. Hunger left no room for pride. In Maverly, survival was its own kind of courage. The walk from Maverly to Hugh Endin wasn't far, but for Orlando and Dwayne, it felt like crossing into another world. The sun beat down hard on their backs, the air thick with heat and dust. They passed high-walled houses with iron gates, gleaming cars behind them, and dogs that barked sharply as the boys hurried past. By the time they knocked on their third gate, Orlando's bare feet were burning and blistered from the hot pavement. At last, a door creaked open. A kind-faced woman emerged, answering their call from beyond the gate, her eyes soft with something like mercy. Without asking many questions, she disappeared inside and returned to the gate, handing them a plastic bag filled with covered dishes, warm and heavy in their hands. Fried chicken, rice and peas, coleslaw, and fried ripe plantain. She wore a floral dress and smelled of fried meat and cooking oil, but carried herself with quiet grace and kindness. "My name's Miss Angela," she said gently. "If you boys need food, come here on Sundays. I'll have something waiting." From that day on, every Sunday, like clockwork, plates were waiting for the boys on her table. Sometimes a bottle of juice, sometimes a little extra fruit is tucked in the bag. One week, as she handed Dwayne the usual package, she paused. "Do you boys go to school?" she asked, glancing kindly at Orlando. Dwayne nodded quickly. "Yes, miss, every day. And my little brother here, he's a good footballer, real good." She smiled. "Really? Come next week earlier and bring his boots." Dwayne gave a quiet laugh, rubbing the back of his neck. Orlando stared at the ground, toeing the dust. "We don't have any boots, miss," Dwayne said softly. "He plays barefoot." Miss Angela raised her brows, but her smile didn't fade. "Still bring him," she said. "Boots or no boots, I want to see this little footballer for myself." Orlando's heart lifted, even as he felt the rough scabs on the soles of his feet. The common was rough and unforgiving, but the moment the ball touched his feet, the world beyond it disappeared. He played with joy, with freedom, with the kind of lightness that made the world fade away. And now, for the first time, someone outside of Maverly wanted to see him play. The following Sunday, true to her word, Miss Angela was waiting with more than just food. "This is Coach Trevor," she said, smiling as she stepped aside. The man behind her was tall and broad-shouldered, with a calm expression and sharp eyes that missed nothing. He ran a small football training program down in Halfway Tree. Nothing fancy, just a patch of dusty grass, some cones, and a heart full of belief in street boys like Orlando. Coach Trevor held out 2 pairs of worn AstroTurf boots. "Not new, but they'll do," he said gruffly. Orlando took his pair gently, turning them over in his hands like they were treasure. They didn't fit, far too big, but he stuffed the toes with crumpled newspaper and tied the laces tight around his skinny ankles. His first real football boots. At the field in Halfway Tree, Orlando felt like he didn't belong. The other boys wore clean jerseys, matching socks, and fresh water bottles glinting beside their bags. Orlando had none of that, just torn shorts, a stretched-out t-shirt, and the hunger curling sharp in his belly. But when the ball rolled his way, everything else disappeared. Instinct took over. He dribbled past 2 defenders quick as wind. He feinted left, cut right, and slipped a pass between legs without thinking. When the return ball came, he sprinted forward and struck it clean. A low shot that kissed the back of the net. Silence. Then a burst of shouts and whistles. Coach Trevor pulled him aside at the end of training, resting a firm hand on his thin shoulder. "You've got something special, kid," he said, eyes crinkling in a rare smile. "Don't waste it. Keep showing up." And so, he did. Week after week, Dwayne would accompany Orlando to Halfway Tree, shoes stuffed with paper, stomach hollow, heart full. Because on that field, boots are no boots, hungry or full. He was finally becoming who he was meant to be. Every day after school, Dwayne and Orlando made the long journey to the pitch, from Mullins Road to the training field in Halfway Tree. Most days they couldn't afford the full bus fare. A few conductors showed kindness, letting them ride for free. Sometimes, a stranger stopped to offer a lift. Other times, they trudged the miles on foot, the city heat pressing against their skin, sweat dampening their collars. Miss Angela began packing food for him, a small parcel of bread and butter, fruit, sometimes a patty, so he wouldn't train on an empty stomach. Coach Trevor quietly spared him some change for transport whenever he could, a small gesture that made a big difference. His teammates, boys who had once seemed like strangers in new kits, offered water and packets of biscuits. It wasn't much, but it was enough. At 15, Orlando made the Pembroke Hall High School football team, the first boy from his neighborhood in years to secure a place. He wasn't just any player. He was the star, quick-footed, fearless, and impossible to mark. During that year's Manning Cup, the biggest high school football tournament in Jamaica, his name echoed through the city. Scouts took notes. Coaches watched intently. He was impossible to miss. Number 10, blazing on his back, and those legendary gold boots gifted by the area Don. They weren't just footwear. They were his signature, his armor, his promise to the game. At 16, the letter came. An invitation to the national camp in Montego Bay, the gateway to Jamaica's under-17 squad. The morning he left, his mother pressed her rough, work-worn hand against his cheek and kissed his forehead. "I'm proud of you, my son," she whispered. Her voice trembled, soft with tears. At camp, Orlando trained like his life depended on it, because in some ways, it did. Early mornings before the sun rose, long, punishing sprints, rainy day drills that left mud on his face and blisters on his heels. He ran until his lungs burned, until his legs shook, until the coaches nodded in approval. He worked harder than anyone. He couldn't afford not to. And then, finally, it happened. The call-up. Jamaica's under-17 squad. Orlando stood alone by the dormitory window, the letter in his trembling hands, and let the tears fall. Quiet, grateful tears. Not just from joy, but from relief, from the heavy weight that lifted off his shoulders. He had made it. This moment felt like the first crack of light in a long, dark tunnel, a small glimpse of the dream Orlando had carried since he was a boy running barefoot on gravel, the dream of lifting his family out of poverty, of changing all their lives forever. Dwayne couldn't hold back his joy. He clapped Orlando on the back, grinning widely. "Boots, you did it, man. You're on your way," he said, pride shining in his eyes. But Orlando shook his head gently, his smile steady and humble. "Not yet, bro. This is just a start. The dream's not complete until we make it to the big leagues in Europe." Dwayne laughed, raising a fist. "The English Premier League, yeah? Boots is coming soon." Orlando bumped his brother's fist, feeling the quiet fire burn in his chest. For a brief moment, they both stood there, two boys from the ghetto, dreaming of a world far beyond the tin roofs and cracked concrete. And for the first time, that world didn't feel so far away. The boy who once played barefoot on the rough common was about to wear Jamaica's colors. A year later, Orlando's relentless hard work finally bore fruit. He signed his first professional contract with Arnett Gardens FC, a respected and seasoned contender in the Jamaican Premier League. It was the moment he had dreamed, the first real step towards the bright future he had always imagined. It wasn't Europe, not yet. It wasn't the Premier League or bright stadium lights, but it was a beginning, a real solid beginning. For the boy who once played barefoot on asphalt, pulling on an official jersey and seeing his name on a contract felt like touching the edge of a dream. Now he came home, not with empty pockets or blistered feet, but with groceries, new clothes, and hope packed into a worn duffel bag. When he stepped through the door of their small shack, his mother broke into joyful tears, covering her face with her hands as her shoulders shook. Dwayne pulled him into a long, quiet hug, pride shining in his eyes. With his first paychecks, Orlando wasted no time. He began to refurbish the old crumbling house. New zinc sheets covered the roof. Cracks in the concrete walls were sealed. A proper bathroom was finally installed. For the first time, his mother could open a refrigerator stocked with food. The house smelled of fresh paint, not damp or dust. It wasn't luxury, but it was home, rebuilt with love, hope, and the promise of a better life. But Orlando never forgot Miss Angela's. Every Sunday, without fail, Dwayne drove them up to Hugh Endon in his old second-hand car and left a care package at Miss Angela's house. Rice, flour, tinned food, soap, simple things wrapped in gratitude. She was older now, slower on her feet, sometimes forgetful, but whenever she caught sight of him, her face lit up with the same familiar smile. "I knew you'd make it, Boots," she'd say, her voice soft as ever. And Orlando would smile back, the name still warming his heart like sunlight. At night, in his small apartment, clean, quiet, and filled with things he never dreamed of owning, Orlando kept one thing by the door: his first torn-up AstroTurf football boots, the same ones Coach Trevor had given him, stuffed with crumpled newspaper, the laces still knotted tight, because no matter how far he'd come, no matter the stadium lights or the crowds or the paychecks, he was still the barefoot boy from the ghetto. Following a string of impressive performances on youth tours across Europe, Orlando earned a trial with an English Premier League side. He didn't disappoint. After weeks of hard work and quiet determination, the club announced that he would officially join them after his 18th birthday. A few months later, the move was complete. Not long after, Orlando made his debut for the club's under-18 squad in an FA Youth Cup tie. He played with the same hunger, the same sharp instinct that had shaped him on the streets of Maverley, among the poor, the forgotten, and the have-nots. His rise didn't go unnoticed back home. Just weeks later, he received his first senior call-up to the Reggae Boys national team for a friendly against Trinidad and Tobago. The manager made no secret of his belief in the teenager. "He's ready," the coach said simply. "Age doesn't matter when you play like he does." Orlando made his senior international debut just days after the announcement, a dream he'd once dared to whisper in the quiet of his childhood room. And then, the moment that made it all real. Just days before his 19th birthday, Orlando stepped onto the pitch for his first Champions League match, the highest level of club football in the world. The barefoot boy from the Kingston ghetto had climbed to Europe's grandest stage. No longer just a prospect or a hopeful name on a team sheet, Orlando had become a regular in the Premier League squad, earning the respect of teammates, fans, and coaches alike. His wildest dreams had come true. From the stands, Dwayne's voice cut through the noise, loud and full of pride. "That's my brother out there," he yelled, pumping his fist in the air. "Show them, Boots. Show them you're the best, man. Boots, Boots." The chant made a few heads turn in the crowd, and soon some of the local boys picked it up, shouting along with him. "Boots, Boots." Orlando heard the echoes from the pitch. A small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. The nickname that once teased him in the streets of Maverley was now being chanted with pride. Every time he laced up his boots, whether beneath the bright lights of London or before the roaring crowds of Europe, memories flooded back. The sting of hunger, the nights when a slice of hard dough bread and a cup of sugar and water was dinner, the gentle scent of Miss Angela's Sunday plates. No matter how far he had come, the weight of those struggling days was stitched into every step he took, because no matter how far he'd come, he was still Orlando Boots Smith, and he would never forget where it all began. It seemed like the astonishing first chapter of a career destined to bring even greater rewards and acclaim. Orlando, a left-footed attacking midfielder with vision and flair, soon cemented his place in the first team. His name was on the team sheet every weekend. Reporters wrote glowing articles, fans wore his jersey, and as the goals and assists stacked up, so did the money. Orlando did what once felt unthinkable. He moved his family out of the ghetto and into a spacious home in Cherry Gardens. The dream that had once seemed impossible, whispered late at night between cracked walls and empty plates, had finally come true. His mother no longer woke at dawn to scrub laundry or sell fruit by the roadside. His brothers no longer knew the sting of hunger or the fear of leaking roofs. Now they lived in comfort, lavish even. Fresh food filled the fridge. Polished marble floors gleamed in the sunlight, replacing the cold concrete floor. The sound of rats scurrying at night was gone, replaced by quiet peace. For the first time in their lives, suffering was no longer part of the household. And every time Orlando walked through that door, he smiled, not because of the luxury, but because he had kept his promise. At first, life changed in small ways. Orlando and Dwayne shared a modest apartment near the club's training ground. Dwayne, always the steady hand, the quiet guardian, watched closely from the sidelines, gently reminding Orlando of where they had come from, of why they'd worked so hard to escape. He knew how easily success could make a man forget, and he refused to let his brother lose sight of the struggle that had shaped them both. One tranquil evening, Dwayne and Orlando sat quietly, nursing a drink, his thoughts heavy, but his voice gentle. "Boots, my little brother," he began, breaking the silence. "There's something I need to say to you. Now that you've entered the world of professional football, you stand in a rare position. Fame, admiration, and attention will follow you everywhere. You are now one of the most eligible young men in the public eye, and many will chase after you, not for who you truly are, but for the fleeting fantasy your success presents. I am not saying you shouldn't enjoy your youth or the good things life offers, but I urge you, do not waste these years on careless pleasures. Your life is no longer solely yours. You are now a role model, a man whose actions and choices will influence others, especially young boys who dream of walking the path you've begun. Use this platform wisely. Let your life reflect purpose, not just fame. Let your example teach enduring values, discipline, respect, responsibility, and above all, the importance of family. We both know how costly its absence can be. You remember what we went through after the death of our father, how he fell to the cruelty of political violence, leaving our mother to carry the heavy burden alone. You saw her struggle. You know what it meant to grow up with a quietness where a father's voice should have been. Promise yourself and your future children that they will not know that loss. Give them the security of a father's daily presence, the safety of a home held steady by two loving parents. Give them the joy of seeing their father and mother together, shaping their world with unity and care. Your fame, your talent, your fortune, these things will fade, but a family, a legacy of love and stability that endures, that is the real triumph, the real victory. So enjoy life, but wisely. Choose women who see you, not just your status. Seek not girlfriends to chase, but a wife to cherish. Let your life model something worth imitating. Because Boots, the world may cheer you for goals and trophies, but your children will remember the man you were at home. And that is the victory that matters most. A virtuous woman is the real trophy boots, Dwayne said softly. Win her heart and lift her, not for show, but as your wife. Girlfriends come and go, but a good wife stands the test of time. Orlando reached over, gripped Dwayne's hand firmly, and pulled him into a tight hug. Appreciate the wisdom, bro, he said quietly. But fame has its own pull. Soon Orlando moved into a sprawling 5-bedroom house on the city's edge. It had everything he'd only ever seen on television. A blue-tiled swimming pool, a private cinema with leather recliners, and soft, thick carpets that cushioned every step, whispering quiet luxury beneath his feet. It was a world apart from the shantytown street of Kingston, a life of quiet luxury, far removed from cracked concrete floors, leaking tin roofs, and restless nights haunted by hunger. Here, the air carried the scent of deluxe, fresh linen, polished wood, and quiet wealth. Not dust, damp, and hardship he once knew. The kitchen gleamed with stainless steel appliances, which his mother had once only dreamed of. For Orlando, it was more than a house. It was proof that the impossible could become real. This was the first time he'd ever set foot in a grand house like this, and now it belonged to him. 2 old friends from high school moved in, eager to share in the new life. A live-in chef arrived, preparing grilled salmon and fresh pasta, meals vastly different from sugar and water dinners, dried bread, boiled dumplings, and butter. Designer clothes filled his wardrobe. A few sleek, luxurious sports cars now sat gleaming in the driveway, the kind Orlando used to stare at in films, wondering if he'd ever even touch one. Their polished bodies reflected the sunlight like jewels, symbols of how far he'd come from the dusty streets of the ghetto. Each time he turned the key in the ignition, it reminded him this was no dream. This was real. The boy who once slept on a thin, torn mattress beneath a leaking tin roof now woke to the quiet hum of air conditioning in summer and the gentle warmth of heaters in winter. Now, the scent of fresh coffee drifted from the modern kitchen. Sunlight poured through wide glass windows. Soft, clean sheets wrapped him in comfort he'd once only dreamed of. It was a dramatic shift in fortune, a true rags-to-riches story. From worn-out clothes and bare feet to brand-name sneakers and designer clothes, Orlando was now living the dream that so many only dared to imagine. Yet some mornings before his eyes fully opened, he could still hear the distant memory of rain tapping on zinc, a quiet reminder of where it all began. But as Orlando stood in the wide, empty living room on his first night in the house, a quiet thought stirred in the back of his mind. Something Dwayne had warned him about. Don't lose yourself, little brother. Money changes people faster than time ever could. For now, life felt good, but the game was changing, on and off the pitch. The barefoot boy was gone. In his place stood a playboy wrapped in luxury. As Orlando's fame grew, so did the attention. Women noticed him now, on the streets, in restaurants, outside the training ground. He embraced the party lifestyle with open arms. Nights out became routine, 2, sometimes 3 times a week. After the matches, after training, after public appearances, there were always after parties in VIP lounges. There, beneath the low lights and pulsing music, Orlando hunted for pleasure, charm in his smile, confidence in his step. Sometimes teammates joined him. Most nights, he didn't need the company. He liked the thrill, the chase, the feeling of being wanted. Not for what he came from, but for who he had become. He enjoyed the nightlife more than he ever expected. The quiet boy from Maverly had turned into a man who owned every room he entered. One evening, Orlando dressed sharply, spruced up in designer threads, ready to hit the town and lose himself in the glittering nightlife. Dwayne stood there, fists clenched, watching his little brother swagger with the careless arrogance of a man drunk on fame. "Boots," Dwayne said, his voice low but edged with warning. "I don't like what I'm seeing. The partying, the women, the drinking. It's reckless, man. It's unprofessional. You're risking everything you fought so hard to build. Every sweat, every tear from the ghetto, wasted. You think this is the dream you bled for? No, Boots. This is you, burning everything you worked for. And these new friends, these party people you call crew, they don't care about you. The moment the money dries up, the music stops, and the lights go out, they'll vanish. And you'll be left standing in the dark, alone. For the first time in their lives, Orlando turned on him, not as the grateful little brother who once begged for scraps, but as a man swollen with pride and entitlement. Bro, you think I should work like a dog while you all sit back and enjoy the ride? He snapped, his eyes flashing with something Dwayne had never seen before. I built this. I shed the sweat and the blood to escape that gutter. Now I'm gonna live. And you're jealous because you're not me. The words hit Dwayne like a slap. Jealous? Dwayne said softly, shaking his head, his chest heavy with disappointment. No, man, I'm not jealous. I'm worried. Worried that you're losing yourself, forgetting who you are, forgetting where you came from. His voice broke for a moment, but he pressed on. You've even forgotten the kind of brother I've always been. The one who protected you when we had nothing, who kept you going when your belly was empty, when sugar and water was dinner. I've only ever wanted what's best for you, Boots. Always. He looked his brother in the eye. But this life you're chasing, it's not it. And deep down, you know it too. But Orlando only laughed, a bitter, empty sound. I don't need you or anyone looking out for me anymore, he sneered. I'm not that barefoot boy anymore. I'm a man now. I run my life my way. Orlando smirked, eyes cold with pride. Look at you, giving advice to the hand that feeds you. Funny, isn't it? He sneered. You're my big brother, but I'm the one carrying this family now. I'm the one paying the bills, putting food on the table, dragging us out of the gutter. Midat. He stepped closer, his voice low and biting. Maybe it's time you remembered that. I should be giving the advice, not you. So here's some for you, Dwayne. Stay out of my business. Worry about your own life. Find your own way to stand on your feet, for once. Without waiting for an answer, he turned and walked away, the heavy thud of his designer shoes echoing off the marble floor. Dwayne froze in the quiet wreckage of the moment, heart heavy with sorrow. Boots is slipping into the trap of stardom, Dwayne thought, a bitter knot tightening in his chest, grief burning in his throat. Fame's got him now, forgotten his humble beginning. The burning needs and desperate wants that once shaped his brother were gone, replaced by dangerous pride and the illusion of invincibility. The humility that once made him great was fading fast, and in its place, arrogance and blind boastfulness had begun to gleam. He's forgotten the hardship of poverty, the quiet prayers for a better life. He's forgotten the dream that mattered, and worst of all, he's forgotten who he is. And deep in Dwayne's gut, a dark certainty settled. This would not end well. After a bright start to his career on the pitch, a serious injury struck. A torn ligament, months on the sidelines, months without the game that gave him purpose. At first he coped. He did his rehab, stayed quiet, but the silence grew heavy. The long days without football pressed on him like a weight. So he escaped into the world that welcomed him with open arms. The parties became his comfort, his distraction, his joy. Soon the parties weren't just in the clubs. They were in his own house. His 3.8 million British pound sterling mansion, with carpeted floors and glass walls, became the backdrop for wild weekend gatherings. Friends, music, women, and expensive champagne flowing freely. The drinks never ran dry, neither did the attention. With a £150,000 a week salary and no match to prepare for, he could afford to buy whatever he wanted: watches, cars, designer clothes, electronics, anything. For the first time in his life, Orlando, once the boy who had nothing, could have anything. And he did. Just days after hosting a lavish New Year's Eve party at his mansion, Orlando found himself at the center of a storm. he never imagined. Police began questioning him over allegations of rape. The news broke quickly. Headlines flashed across screens and printed papers. A rising football star under criminal investigation. His club launched an immediate internal probe. The media frenzy was relentless. Then the charges came. Orlando was formally charged with the rape of a 21-year-old woman who was alleged to have been too intoxicated to give consent after a party night at his house. His world unraveled overnight. The club suspended him and stopped paying his wages. Sponsors distanced themselves. Activists rallied publicly against him. The player who once had the world at his feet was suddenly cast into darkness. It was an unimaginable downfall for a man whose career had seemed destined for greatness. Orlando maintained his innocence from the start. Released on bail, he prepared for the trial, alongside a legal team determined to clear his name. The trial took place at London Crown Court. Over 8 intense days, testimonies unfolded, evidence was examined, and the nation watched with bated breath. Then the verdict came, a conviction. Orlando was sentenced to 5 years imprisonment. Behind bars, the silence was crushing. But even in that darkness, hope flickered. After serving half his sentence, Orlando was granted leave to appeal. 3 years after that fateful night, the case returned to court for a retrial. The 8-day hearing this time ended differently. After just 2 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a unanimous verdict. Orlando was acquitted. As the foreman announced the not guilty verdict, Orlando lowered his head, fighting back tears. He rushed from the dock, straight into the arms of his brother Dwayne. They held each other tightly, shoulders shaking with sobs. A moment of relief and brotherly love after a long, painful journey. Orlando's battle had not just been about the law. It had been a fight to reclaim his life, his dignity, his career, and his future. Though the employment tribunal ruled in his favor, ordering his former club to pay over £11 million in unpaid wages. Not even that hard-won victory could instantly restore what had been irreparably shattered: reputation, trust, the promise of a glittering career. These were things no sum of money could buy back. Some losses ran deeper than any court could heal. Though Orlando managed to sign with a lower league club and revive his career, the dazzling lights of the Premier League, the Champions League, and the grand international stage had slipped forever beyond his grasp. Despite his talent and determination, the weight of his past and lost years proved difficult to overcome. He fought on the pitch, but the trajectory of his career had changed forever. The boy who once dreamed of greatness now played quietly in the shadows, still chasing a dream, but with a different kind of hope. Success may come quickly, but true strength lies in how we handle adversity and the choices we make along the way. Dreams built on hard work, humility, and sacrifice are fragile if not guarded by wisdom, discipline, and self-awareness. No matter how far we rise, we must never forget where we came from, for our roots remind us of who we are and keep us grounded in what truly matters. In the glare of fame and fortune, caution is as vital as talent, because a single false step or accusation, whether true or not, can shatter reputations, ruin careers, and change lives forever. In the unforgiving court of public opinion, judgment often comes long before truth, and the damage done can be impossible to reverse. Ultimately, character, integrity, and humility are worth more than glory. For rebuilding trust is far harder than chasing success. If you enjoyed the story, show some love, like, comment, and subscribe to Word, Sound, and Story, where Troy McKenzie transforms real-life experiences into meaningful, dramatic, and entertaining tales.